Coming to you from the city-state Singapore, one of the four Asian tiger economies that began building itself in the 1960s and eventually became a powerhouse in finance, it transitioned from a developing nation to a developed nation in a single generation. Amazing. Anyway, I'm here on a speaking tour where I'll be talking at Singapore's top university, along with other venues about business in the future, leveraging technology and social media when launching your company, among other topics. But it's official. We're at the halfway point of the 48 Laws of Power. Law 24, play the perfect courtier. The perfect courtier thrives in a world where everything revolves around power and political dexterity. He has mastered the art of indirection, he flatters, yields to superiors, and asserts power over others in the most oblique and graceful manner. Learn and apply the laws of courtiership, and there will be no limit to how far you can rise in the court. By courtier, Greene is talking about the court that used to gather around the ruler. They'd praise him, solidify the noble social structure, and help the crown keep an eye on fellow aristocracy and subordinates, but their most important role was to exalt the leader and fight among each other to earn his pleasure. Sounds fantastic. They did all this to be close to power, to dwell in the inner circle, and by proximity, live a good life. But it was a perilous endeavor. Screw up, and there goes your head, literally. As Greene says about the courtiers, they make the king feel more kingly. They make everyone else feel their power. They're the magicians of appearance, knowing that most things at court are judged by how they seem. Great courtiers are gracious and polite. Their aggression is veiled and indirect. Masters of the word, they never say more than necessary, getting the most out of a compliment or hidden insult. They are magnets of pleasure. People want to be around them because they know how to please, yet they neither fawn nor humiliate themselves. Great courtiers become the king's favorites, enjoying the benefits of that position. They often end up more powerful than the ruler, for they are the wizards in the accumulation of influence. Even though the royal court does not really exist anymore, at least lost its power, court and courtiers still exist today because power and power structures are still around. Greene then gives 15 laws of court politics, such as avoid ostentation, practice nonchalance, be frugal with flattery, never criticize those above you directly, do not be the court cynic, be self-observant, master emotions, so on and so forth. He gives 11 examples illustrating most of these laws. I'll share a few anecdotes just to give you a taste of what Greene is talking about. One of the stories is about the Han Dynasty, about 2,000 years ago. But it's actually about Chinese academics who later came across these writings called the 21 Histories. It was a biography of each dynasty that had stories, statistics, census figures, things like that. Each story had a chapter called Unusual Events, and among them were earthquakes and floods, but then there would be these weird stories of two-headed sheep, geese flying backwards, stars suddenly appearing in different parts of the sky, so on and so forth. The earthquakes could be verified, but the other stories were just too strange, so the scholars didn't know how to interpret them. They finally concluded that the courtiers, who were the authors of these writings, wrote about these bizarre tales as an indirect way to warn the ruler of his actions, saying, and decisions. It would have been foolish to tell the emperor directly he was making mistakes. Remember, he and his kingdom were at the center of the universe. Informing him of his missteps would have been as good as suicide. The courtiers were indirectly telling the ruler that he was having an adverse effect on the universe. He was unbalancing the cosmos and needed to change course. Pure brilliance by the courtiers. Another story was of the French architect, Jules Mansart. He was commissioned to design minor addition to King Louis XIV's Palace of Versailles. He was a crafty guy. When he would draw up plans, he would cunningly insert imperfections in the garden parts of the drawings, which was not his specialty. He knew that King Louis would point out these errors, and when King Louis did, Mansart would make a scene so that everyone could hear that if it wasn't for the masterful eye of King Louis, he, Mansart, the lowly pupil to the master, would have missed it. He would then praise the king, and that next to him he was nothing. What a suck-up. Because of this, although he wasn't the most talented and experienced, he was given the entire project of enlarging the Palace of Versailles. Sly guy. The last story I'll share is about the painter Jean-Baptiste Isabey. During the Congress of Vienna in 1814, Isabey was commissioned to capture this monumental event in an epic painting. When the French negotiator Talleyrand came, he went to Isabey and said that he expected to be in the middle of the painting. A few days later, the English negotiator, the Duke of Wellington, also approached Isabey and said that he wanted to be in the center of the painting as well. Now, Isabey was stuck. His dilemma was to serve two masters simultaneously. What Isabey did was brilliant. When the painting was revealed, Isabey had Talleyrand in the middle of the image, while the Duke of Wellington was entering the door of the hall with all eyes in the room on him. So, in essence, they were both front and center in the painting. Genius move. I need to hurry this up because I think it's about to rain. So how do we make Law 24 relatable to today? Think of this law as exemplifying the modern day workplace. Your boss is the king, your superiors are other nobility, and your colleagues are other courtiers. Interestingly, Greene has no reversal of this law, the first up to this point. He pretty much means this law is etched in stone in regard to pursuing power, watching those who desire it, or recognizing that if someone wants power over you, there's no way for them to avoid not implementing this law. The first thing that stood out to me about this law was the title, Play the Perfect Courtier. Not be the perfect courtier, which simply means that you must learn how to manipulate your subordinates and even your master. To be the perfect courtier, you shouldn't be manipulating your lord. But to play the perfect courtier, you must use these methods of control to influence your master until you become the master yourself. This law also somewhat reminds me of the first one. Don't outshine the master. Do whatever you need to do to not make your boss or superiors feel threatened. You should always know your place and play that role to the T. Additionally, now being halfway through the book, it seems that the very embodiment of all the 48 laws of powers is to play the perfect courtier, right? Someone on the rise trying to attain a goal, whether it's a new job, a promotion, or a date, needs to suck up to someone. At some point in our lives, we've all done it. We've all brown-nosed to have the ball bounce our way. It sounds terrible, but it's true, right? We're all guilty of it. Whether it's trying to finesse our way out of a parking ticket, getting a free upgrade, or politely asking the rude cashier to let us in when the store just closed 5 minutes ago. We might not be aware of it, but we do suck up to people who have some kind of power over us. However, there is one thing you must always understand. With this law or any of the others, you can probably gain some kind of power or have someone lean your way, but the idea of true independence is a mirage. It would be more correct to say that you can gain more autonomy, but you will always have to answer to someone, whether it's your boss, your board, your investors, your kids, your customers, your spouse, whatever. For the rest of your life, you will always have someone breathing down your neck. But let's get back to the workplace. People make all kinds of mistakes, break law after law, and find themselves out of a job for some unknown reason. But are they truly unknown? Most of our communication is nonverbal, so those subtle eye and body movements you make, the micro expressions, unusual hand gestures, slight changes in tone are noticed by your boss and superiors. So practice more self-awareness. Always know your place and never overreach. Show your worth, stand out, but know your position. Think about your past managers and bosses, the ones you enjoyed working for and worked the long hours for. Why'd you do that? I'm sure they weren't the ones who undervalued your work or spoke disrespectfully to you. You probably worked hardest for the ones who appreciated your efforts and praised you for a job well done. And now think about those who worked for you. Mr. Smarty Pants, who had all the answers, made remarks under her breath, and those who hinted at the thought that you had no clue of what you were doing. How did you feel when review and assessment time came around for those subordinates? Just remember, what goes around comes around. The people you see on your way up are the same people you see on your way down, so try to be a person of good vibes because you attract the energy you put out. Or as Greene says, be a source of pleasure. Well, that's all I have for Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. And when you do, according to Greene, you're able to attain some power. Signing out from 1 degree north of the equator, Singapore. Take care and be awesome. Peace.